The human vessel Horizon drifted in the empty space between stars, waiting. Captain Daniel Price stood on the bridge, arms crossed, watching the view screen show nothing but distant points of light. His crew worked quietly at their stations, checking systems for the 100th time that day. "How long now?" Daniel asked. 17 minutes until the scheduled meeting time. Lieutenant Amy Foster replied from her position at Tactical. "Assuming they're punctual." Ambassador Lisa Grant sat in the observer's chair, reviewing her notes one more time. She had prepared for this moment for 6 months, ever since humanity's deep space probes had detected signs of an advanced civilization. The Zarathian Empire controlled most of this region of space, and this first contact would determine humanity's future relationship with them. "Ma'am, we're detecting a hyperspace signature," Science Officer Kevin Morris announced. "Big one. Really big." The view screen shifted as a massive ship emerged from faster-than-light travel. The Zarathian flagship was 5 times larger than the Horizon. Its hull covered in what looked like ceremonial armor plating. Lights blazed along its surface, and smaller escort vessels appeared around it in perfect formation. "Well, they certainly know how to make an entrance," Daniel muttered. "Incoming transmission," Communications Officer Jack Palmer said. "They're hailing us." "Put it through," Lisa said, straightening in her chair and composing her face into a neutral diplomatic expression. The view screen filled with the image of a tall alien figure. The Zarathian commander stood at least 7 feet tall, his body covered in elaborate armor that gleamed under bright lights. His face was angular, with sharp features and eyes that seemed to glow faintly. Behind him, other officers stood at attention in a cavernous command center. "I am Supreme Commander Vex Thor of the Zarathian Imperial Fleet," the alien declared, his voice deep and resonant. "You will identify yourselves and state your purpose in Imperial space." Lisa stood, keeping her expression calm and professional. "I am Ambassador Lisa Grant, representing humanity and the planet Earth. We come in peace to establish diplomatic relations with your empire." Vex Thor's eyes narrowed. "Peace. Yes. We shall discuss the terms of peace. But first, you must understand the reality of your situation." Daniel felt a slight tension in the air. This wasn't starting well. For 5,000 years, the Zarathian Empire has expanded across the stars, Vex Thor continued, his voice taking on a formal, rehearsed quality. "We control 847 star systems. Our military forces number in the billions. Our weapons can crack planets and boil oceans. No species has ever successfully opposed our will." Lisa maintained her diplomatic composure, though Daniel noticed her grip tighten slightly on her datapad. "We have achieved what others only dream of," Vex Thor went on. "Continuous expansion, unbroken dominance, total control over this region of space. We are the inheritors of destiny, the masters of the void, the eternal empire." Kevin Morris coughed slightly, turning away from his console. Daniel shot him a warning look, but he could feel his own lips starting to twitch. "Now, you arrive in our territory," Vex Thor said, his tone becoming harder. "You, a species we have never encountered, from a world we did not know existed. You will submit to imperial authority. You will surrender all territorial claims. You will pay annual tribute. You will provide soldiers for our armies. This is not negotiable." "I see," Lisa said carefully. "Refuse?" Vex Thor seemed genuinely surprised by the question. "Refusal is not possible. We have never been refused. Those who resist are crushed. Those who delay are conquered. Those who oppose the Empire are erased from history. This is the way it has always been." Daniel bit the inside of his cheek, trying desperately not to react. Next to him, Amy Foster had her hand over her mouth, her shoulders shaking slightly. "Our warriors train from birth," Vex Thor continued, warming to his subject. "They can fight for 3 days without rest. They know no fear, no mercy, no hesitation. Our battle fleets have laid waste to entire civilizations. Our armies have never known defeat." A sound escaped from Kevin Morris, something between a cough and a laugh. He quickly turned it into a clearing of his throat, but Daniel saw several other crew members starting to struggle. In our most glorious campaign, the War of the Shattered Moons, we fought for 8 months across 12 systems, Vexthor declared. 40 million souls perished in that conflict. It stands as the bloodiest war in galactic history. No species has matched our capacity for warfare. That did it. Daniel felt a laugh building in his chest, and he couldn't stop it. His shoulders started shaking. He tried to turn it into a cough, but it came out as a strangled snort instead. Our technology is beyond your comprehension, Vexthor said, not seeming to notice. We have mastered hyperspace travel for millennia. We have weapons that your primitive science cannot imagine. We have conquered species far more advanced than you appear to be. Amy Foster actually snorted out loud this time. The sound echoed across the bridge. Vexthor paused, his expression shifting to confusion. You make strange sounds. Is this a sign of fear? A biological response to stress? Lisa tried to speak, but she was fighting back laughter now too. Our empire spans thousands of light years, Vexthor interrupted, his voice rising. We have brought order to chaos, civilization to barbarism, unity to disorder. We are unstoppable, invincible, eternal. Those who face us have 2 choices: submit or die. Daniel lost control completely. He started laughing, deep belly laughs that he couldn't suppress. Within seconds, the entire bridge crew joined him. Kevin Morris was bent over his console, tears streaming down his face. Amy Foster had turned away completely, her whole body shaking with laughter. Even Lisa, professional diplomat that she was, had her hand over her mouth, trying and failing to contain her mirth. What is the meaning of this? Vexthor demanded, his voice sharp with confusion and rising anger. You dare laugh at the might of the Empire? Daniel tried to speak, gasped for air, and laughed harder. Lisa waved her hand apologetically, but she was laughing too hard to form words. This is an insult, Vexthor shouted. His officers behind him looked equally bewildered. Some seemed angry, others simply confused. Clearly, this had never happened before. You mock the Eternal Empire. You show disrespect to 5,000 years of glory. I'm sorry, Daniel managed to gasp out between fits of laughter. I'm so sorry. It's just 3 days. He couldn't finish. He was laughing too hard. Explain yourselves. Vexthor's face had darkened to a deeper shade. This behavior is incomprehensible. It will be considered an act of war if you do not provide immediate clarification. Lisa finally managed to pull herself together enough to speak, though tears were running down her face. Commander Vexthor, please forgive us. This is not how we intended this meeting to go. I assure you, we mean no disrespect. Then explain this reaction, Vexthor demanded coldly. Daniel took several deep breaths, trying to compose himself. He looked at Lisa, who nodded reluctantly. This had already gone wrong. They might as well be honest. Commander, Daniel said, still fighting back laughter. We need about an hour to prepare a proper response to your generous offer. Would that be acceptable? 1 hour, Vexthor said, his voice like ice. You will explain this bizarre behavior, or you will be considered hostile. The Empire does not tolerate mockery. The transmission cut off abruptly. The bridge crew slowly began to calm down, though occasional giggles still escaped. Lisa looked at Daniel with a mixture of exasperation and lingering amusement. Well, Captain, that was possibly the worst first contact in human history. I know, Daniel said, wiping tears from his eyes, but come on, 3 days without rest, 8 months being their bloodiest war? They think 40 million casualties is impressive? We need to figure out how to explain this without starting an interstellar war, Lisa said. Though she was smiling despite herself, Kevin Morris looked up from his console. Ma'am, if I may suggest, maybe we should just tell them the truth. Show them Earth's history. They clearly have no idea what we're actually like. Daniel nodded slowly. He's right. We can't pretend that didn't just happen. And honestly, if they understood why we laughed, they might understand us better. Or they'll decide we're too dangerous to let exist, Amy Foster pointed out. Only one way to find out, Daniel said. Let's prepare a data package. Everything. History. Biology. Environmental data. Military records. Let's show them exactly who they're dealing with. Lisa considered this, then nodded. Honesty it is. Though I suspect this is going to be a very interesting day. Outside the viewport, the Zarathian flagship hung in space, its weapon systems clearly active and tracking the horizon. 1 hour, until they had to explain why humanity found the Empire's threats hilarious, rather than terrifying. Daniel suspected it was going to be a very educational hour for everyone involved. The conference room on the horizon felt smaller than usual with all the senior staff crammed inside. Lisa Grant sat at the head of the table, her earlier amusement replaced by focused professionalism. Around her, the officers who had been laughing uncontrollably an hour ago now wore serious expressions. We have 53 minutes, Lisa said, checking her datapad. Let's figure out how to explain ourselves without making things worse. With respect, Ambassador, I think we should just own it, Kevin Morris said. He pulled up a holographic display showing the data they had gathered on the Zarathian Empire. Look at their expansion rate. 847 systems in 5,000 years. That's one new system every 6 years, roughly. And, Lisa prompted, during Earth's age of exploration, European powers colonized entire continents in less time. Using wooden ships powered by wind, Kevin continued. No faster than light travel. No advanced technology. Just determination and wooden boats. Chief Engineer Sandra Hayes leaned forward. I've been analyzing their military boasts too. They claim their soldiers can fight for 3 days without rest. Ambassador, human military forces routinely conduct operations lasting weeks in hostile terrain. Basic training includes sleep deprivation exercises that last longer than 3 days. Daniel Price nodded slowly. Their bloodiest war. 8 months, 40 million dead. That's what they consider the peak of warfare? Earth's Second World War lasted 6 years. Security Chief Brandon Cole said quietly. Over 70 million dead. And that was with primitive weapons compared to what we have now. Chemical explosives and ballistic ammunition. The room fell silent for a moment as everyone absorbed that comparison. Medical Officer Dr. Helen Cross pulled up her own data. I looked into their most devastating conflict, the one Vex Thor mentioned with such reverence. 40 million deaths across their entire empire over 8 months. That's about 5 million per month across hundreds of worlds. She paused, then continued. The Battle of the Somme, on Earth, lasted 4.5 months, over 1 million casualties, and that was just one battle in one war, on one planet, in one region. They talk about war like it's something rare and terrible. For us, it's been almost constant throughout our recorded history. So, what you're all saying, Lisa said slowly, is that we laughed because their threats actually are ridiculous by our standards. Yes, ma'am, Jack Palmer said. And I don't think we should hide that. If we pretend their military might impresses us, we start this relationship with a lie. But if we're honest about why we reacted that way, maybe they'll understand us better. Lisa considered this. You realize that if we tell them the truth about Earth and human history, they might decide we're too dangerous to allow to exist? They might, Daniel agreed. But they already know something's off. We laughed at their supremacy speech. They're going to want answers. We can either give them honest answers or make up something that'll fall apart later. All right, Lisa decided. We go with honesty. Kevin, Sandra, Helen, Brandon, compile everything. Environmental data from Earth, historical records, military information, technological development timeline. Make it comprehensive and unedited. No propaganda, just facts. How much detail? Kevin asked. Everything relevant. If they're going to understand why we responded the way we did, they need to see the full picture. What Earth is like. what we evolved to survive, what we've done to each other and somehow still survived as a species. The team scattered to their stations, working quickly to compile the data package. Daniel stayed with Lisa as she prepared her response. "You think this'll work?" he asked. "I have no idea," Lisa admitted. "But I'd rather be honest and risk their anger than lie and risk their contempt. At least this way, they'll know what they're dealing with." 45 minutes later, the team reconvened. The data package was ready, a comprehensive file containing Earth's environmental specifications, biological data on humans, historical records spanning thousands of years, and technical information about humanity's technological development. "It's a lot of information," Kevin warned. "Some of it is pretty disturbing, even for us." "They wanted to know who we are," Lisa said. "This is who we are." When the hour was up, Daniel opened the communication channel. Vexthor appeared immediately, his expression cold and controlled. "You have your explanation?" the Zarathian commander demanded. "We do," Daniel said. He had volunteered to deliver this message, reasoning that he had already ruined the diplomatic niceties. "Commander, I apologize for our earlier reaction. It was unprofessional and disrespectful. However, I think you deserve an honest explanation rather than a diplomatic excuse." "Speak," Vexthor said curtly. "We laughed because your threats seemed, to us, relatively mild," Daniel said bluntly. "Not because we don't take you seriously, but because we come from a very different background than you might expect." Vexthor's eyes narrowed dangerously. "You consider the might of the Empire mild?" "By our standards, yes," Daniel said. "We're transmitting a data package that explains why. It contains information about Earth, our homeworld, and about human history. I encourage you to review it. It's all factual, all verifiable. We're not trying to intimidate you. We're trying to help you understand our perspective." The data transfer completed. On the Zarathian flagship, officers began reviewing the information. Daniel watched their expressions begin to change from anger to confusion, to something that looked like disbelief. "This environmental data must be incorrect," Vexthor said after a few minutes. "Your planet's gravity is listed as significantly higher than our standard. The atmospheric composition is too energetic. The temperature variations are extreme." "That data is accurate," Kevin Morris said, joining the conversation. "Earth has 1.3 times your gravity. Our atmosphere has higher oxygen content. Our seasons involve temperature swings of 40 to 50 degrees in many regions. It's a harsh world. No species could evolve intelligence under such conditions." A Zarathian science officer objected from the background. "We did," Daniel said simply. "We didn't have a choice. Adapt or die." Vexthor scrolled through more data, his expression becoming increasingly disturbed. "These historical records, this cannot be accurate. You claim to have fought thousands of major conflicts throughout your history? That's conservative actually, Doctor," Helen Cross said. "Those are just the ones we have detailed records for. Human conflict has been nearly continuous for as long as we've kept records. But why?" Vexthor seemed genuinely baffled. "Why would you fight yourselves so constantly? Territory, resources, religion, ideology, ethnic identity. Sometimes just because we disagreed about who should be in charge," Daniel listed. "We're a contentious species. We compete over everything, including the right to exist." A Zarathian officer spoke urgently to Vexthor in their own language. The commander's face grew darker as he listened. "You're World War II," Vexthor said slowly. "You fought for 6 years. Over 70 million dead. This is accurate?" "Yes," Lisa confirmed. "And you continued to develop more destructive weapons even after that conflict ended?" "We developed atomic weapons during that war," Daniel said. "We used them twice, saw what they could do, and then built enough of them to destroy our planet dozens of times over." Silence from the Zarathian side. Several officers were staring at their screens in what looked like horror. "You possess world-ending weapons?" Vexthor asked carefully. "For over 300 years now," Sandra Hayes said. "We created international treaties and control systems to prevent their use because we're genuinely afraid of what we could do to ourselves." "You fear your own weapons?" "Of course we do," Daniel said. They're terrifying. We know exactly what they can do because we've done it. We saw the burned cities, the radiation sickness, the long-term contamination. We chose to regulate them because the alternative is mutual extinction. Vex Thor was reading something on his own screen, his movements becoming more agitated. This Battle of the Somme. 1 million casualties in 4.5 months. In a single region, using primitive weapons, artillery, machine guns, and poison gas, mostly. Brandon Cole confirmed. We got very good at killing each other long before we reached space. And this is just one battle? One battle in one war? Yes, Brandon said. We have records of hundreds of similar engagements throughout our history. A Zarathian officer approached Vexi Thor, speaking urgently. The commander listened, then looked back at the screen with an expression that was hard to read. Your soldiers, Vex Thor said. This training regimen you subject them to. Sleep deprivation for weeks, forced marches carrying heavy loads, combat exercises in extreme environments. This is standard? For military forces, yes, Brandon said. We train our soldiers to function under conditions that would incapacitate most beings. Earth is a hostile enough environment that we need people who can handle extreme stress. But you boasted that your warriors can fight for 3 days without rest, Kevin pointed out, unable to help himself. Human soldiers have fought for weeks under continuous combat conditions. It's not pleasant. It's not healthy. But we can do it. This is impossible. A Zarathian science officer protested. The biological stress alone would. We have medical records if you want them, Dr. Helen Cross interrupted. Human physiology includes numerous stress response systems. We can continue functioning with injuries that would kill most species. We have documented cases of humans performing incredible physical feats under extreme conditions. Our bodies have built-in override systems for emergencies. Show me, Vex Thor demanded. Helen pulled up medical data, explaining human healing capabilities, pain tolerance, and adrenal responses. She showed footage of human athletic competitions, endurance events, and survival situations. The Zarathians watched in what looked like growing dismay. Your expansion rate, Kevin said, deciding to hammer home the point. 1 new system every 6 years over 5 millennia. That's very methodical and controlled. But it's also slower than human colonization of Earth's Pacific Islands, which we accomplished using wooden boats and navigation by stars. Impossible, Vex Thor said, but he sounded less certain now. You've never fought a war where you might actually lose, have you? Daniel asked quietly. Every species you've encountered has been primitive enough that your victory was certain. You've never struggled. You've never had to develop desperate innovations just to survive. You've never faced an existential threat. The silence from the Zarathian flagship was deafening. We're not trying to threaten you, Lisa said, her voice gentle. We're trying to explain why your ultimatum seemed absurd to us. From our perspective, based on our experience, your threats weren't threatening. They were almost quaint. Quaint, Vex Thor repeated, his voice hollow. We don't want war, Lisa continued. We've had enough war to last several lifetimes. But we're very good at it when necessary. And we remember every lesson we learned in blood. Vex Thor sat back in his command chair, his expression unreadable. Around him, his officers looked shaken. I need time to process this information, Vex Thor finally said. And I need to consult with the Imperial High Council. They will want to speak with you directly. We're happy to meet with them, Lisa said. You should know, Vex Thor added, his voice strange, that in 5,000 years of expansion, no species has ever made the Empire hesitate. You are the first. The transmission ended. The human crew looked at each other, processing what had just happened. Well, Daniel said into the silence, that went better than I expected. Or worse, Amy Foster said. Hard to tell. We told them the truth, Lisa said. Now we wait and see how they handle it. Outside the viewport, the Zarathian flagship remained in position, but its weapons had powered down. Small ships began moving between vessels in the Imperial fleet, presumably carrying urgent messages. Humanity had made its introduction to the galactic community, and nothing would be quite the same again. On the Zarathian flagship, Supreme Commander Vex Thor sat in his private chambers, surrounded by holographic displays showing data from the human transmission. His senior staff had assembled for an emergency council, their faces reflecting varying degrees of concern and disbelief. Science Prelate Thexral spoke first, his voice carefully controlled. I have verified the environmental data 3 times. Earth's specifications are accurate. Gravity 1.3 times our standard. Oxygen-rich atmosphere. Extreme temperature variations. Violent weather patterns. It is classified as a death world by our standards. How can intelligence evolve under such conditions? Navigator Kai's Tal asked. The energy requirements alone would favor simple survival over complex thought. Yet they did evolve intelligence, Thexral said. And their biology adapted specifically to those harsh conditions. They are persistence hunters. Commander, they evolved to chase prey across long distances until their targets collapsed from exhaustion. Most Earth predators are faster and stronger, but humans can maintain pursuit indefinitely. Vex Thor studied the data on human physiology. This cooling system. These sweat glands. They can dissipate heat while running? Oh, yes, Commander. It allows them to maintain physical activity for hours without overheating. Most of Earth's apex predators must stop to cool down. Humans exploit this weakness. Military Coordinator Brecknoth pulled up historical records from the human data package. His hands shook slightly as he navigated through the files. Commander, I have reviewed their military history. I do not know how to categorize what I am seeing. Explain, Vex Thor ordered. They fight constantly. Not just between different groups, but the same cultural groups fight among themselves over ideology, religion, and political systems. They have specific terminology for different scales of conflict. Skirmish, battle, campaign, war, world war. Brecknoth paused. They needed separate words, because they fought so often. Show me their bloodiest conflict, Vex Thor said. Brecknoth pulled up World War II data. The statistics filled the holographic display. Vex Thor felt something cold settle in his chest as he read. 6 years, he said slowly. 70 to 85 million dead. Entire cities destroyed. Millions of civilians deliberately targeted. Chemical weapons, firebombing, and then these atomic weapons. The atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Brecknoth said quietly. 2 weapons. Over 200,000 dead, many more dying slowly from radiation. The humans saw this and were horrified, so they built thousands more of these weapons and pointed them at themselves. Why? Vex Thor demanded. Why build weapons that terrify you? Deterrence, Energy Coordinator Velka said, joining the conversation. They call it mutually assured destruction. If everyone has world-ending weapons, no one can use them without guaranteeing their own extinction. So they created elaborate systems to prevent accidental use while maintaining the threat. They live under permanent threat of self-annihilation? For over 3 centuries now. Yes, Velkas confirmed. And they chose this. They made international agreements to limit these weapons, but kept enough to destroy their world many times over. They are genuinely afraid of what they can do to themselves, but they maintain the capability anyway. Vex Thor stood and paced his chambers. We boasted about the War of the Shattered Moons. 8 months. 40 million dead. We called it the bloodiest conflict in galactic history. It was, Commander, Thexral said. Until now. The humans have fought dozens of conflicts that exceeded our worst war. And they did so with primitive technology before achieving spaceflight. Show me this Battle of the Somme they mentioned. Vex Thor said. The data appeared. Over 1 million casualties in 4.5 months. Soldiers fighting in muddy trenches, using artillery and machine guns. Images showed the devastation, the conditions, the sheer scale of death. This was one battle, Brecknoth said. In one region, in one war. They have records of hundreds of similar engagements. Silence filled the chamber. The Zarathian officers looked at each other, processing what they were seeing. "We have never fought a war we could lose," Vexthor said finally. "Every species we encountered was primitive. We arrived with superior technology and overwhelming force. They surrendered because resistance was futile. The humans come from a world where nothing is futile if you survive it," Thexral said. "They evolved in an environment that should have killed them. They survived by being too stubborn to die and too aggressive to give up. Then they turned that same aggression on each other for thousands of years." A junior officer appeared at the chamber entrance. "Commander, the Imperial High Council wishes to speak with you immediately." Vexthor nodded. "Route the communication here." The holographic display shifted to show the 12 members of the Imperial High Council. High Chancellor Mixreth, eldest of them all, spoke first. "We have reviewed the human data transmission, Commander. Is it genuine?" "Our analysis suggests yes, High Chancellor. We have found no evidence of fabrication." "Then we have a serious situation," Mixreth said. "We issued an ultimatum to a species that finds us laughable. This is unprecedented. We have a CI. We have a serious situation. We have a serious situation." "More than unprecedented, High Chancellor," Vextor said carefully. "The humans are correct. By their standards, our threats were not threatening. Their world is harsher than our worst colony planets. Their history is bloodier than our entire empire's combined conflicts. Their technology, in many areas, exceeds our own." "How is that possible?" another council member demanded. "We have advanced for 5,000 years. They advanced faster because they needed to," Vexthor explained. "They competed against themselves constantly. Every major war drove innovation. Every conflict created new technologies, new tactics, new strategies. They refined the art of warfare through continuous practice, while we refined the art of intimidating primitives." High Chancellor Mixreth was silent for a long moment. "What is your assessment of their military capabilities?" "Unknown, High Chancellor. But I believe engaging them would be catastrophic. They have experience with total war, with fighting enemies of equal or superior capability. We have no such experience. They know how to lose and keep fighting. We do not." "They mentioned world-ending weapons," another council member said. "Should we take that seriously?" "They have possessed atomic weapons for over 300 years, Velkas reported. "They used them twice in warfare, saw the consequences, and then built enough to destroy Earth dozens of times. They live under permanent threat from their own weapons and have developed complex systems to prevent their use." "Why would anyone develop such weapons and not use them?" the council member asked. "Because they are afraid," Vexthor said. "Not of us. Of themselves. They know exactly what they are capable of, and it terrifies them. That makes them more dangerous, not less. They have restraint born from experience with devastation. We need more information," Mixreth decided. "Invite their delegation to Zarathia Prime. We will meet these humans face to face and assess them properly. If they are as dangerous as they appear, we need to know before we make any further mistakes." The transmission ended. Vexthor sat back down, feeling tired in a way he had never experienced in 3 centuries of military service. "Contact the human vessel," he told his communications officer. "Extend an invitation to their leaders to visit our homeworld." Hours later, the communication channel opened again. Ambassador Lisa Grant appeared on screen, with Captain Daniel Price beside her. "Ambassador Grant," Vexthor said, his tone carefully neutral. "The Imperial High Council requests your presence on Zarathia Prime. They wish to meet with you and discuss our mutual future." "We would be honored to visit your homeworld, Commander," Lisa said diplomatically. "I must warn you," Vexthor added, "that this invitation is not optional. The Council needs to assess your people directly. Too much depends on accurate understanding." "We understand," Daniel said. "We're ready to come whenever you wish." "Follow our navigational coordinates," Vexthor said. "The journey will take 3 days. We will provide escort." "Thank you, Commander," Lisa said. We'll prepare for departure immediately. As the horizon began following the Zarathian vessels toward their homeworld, the human crew gathered to discuss what came next. "They're scared," Kevin Morris observed. You could hear it in his voice. "They should be," Brandon Cole said. "Not because we're threatening them, but because they've realized they have no idea what they're dealing with. We need to be careful here," Lisa cautioned. "Frightened people make bad decisions. We don't want them to conclude that eliminating us is safer than coexisting with us." "So what's our approach?" Daniel asked. "Honesty, again," Lisa decided. "But we emphasize our desire for peace. We show them that yes, we're capable of terrible things, but we're also capable of remarkable cooperation. We're not just warriors. We're builders, scientists, artists, and diplomats too." Dr. Patricia Moore, a historian who had been mostly silent until now, spoke up. "Ambassador, if I may suggest, we should also show them our capacity for compassion. They need to see that we choose restraint not from weakness, but from strength. We're dangerous when threatened, but we prefer partnership to conflict." "Good idea," Lisa agreed. "Prepare a broader cultural presentation. Science, art, medicine, cooperation. Show them the full picture of humanity, not just the scary parts." Over the next 3 days, as the horizon traveled toward Zarathia Prime, both sides prepared. The humans compiled additional data showing humanity's achievements beyond warfare. The Zarathians reviewed every piece of information they could gather, trying to understand this impossible species that had laughed at the Empire's might. On the 3rd day, Zarathia Prime appeared in the viewport. The planet was beautiful, with gentle continents and calm oceans, cities spread across the surface in orderly patterns, their architecture emphasizing harmony and permanence. "It's peaceful," Amy Foster observed. "No fortifications, no hardened structures. They've never been attacked," Brandon Cole said quietly. 5,000 years of expansion, and no one has ever struck back at their homeworld. They don't even think in terms of defense because they've never needed it. No one. The horizon descended through the atmosphere, landing at a designated facility near the capital city. Through the viewports, the human crew could see Zarathian crowds gathered to observe their arrival. Some looked curious. Many looked afraid. "Here we go," Daniel said, standing and straightening his uniform. "Let's go meet an empire and try not to scare them more than we already have." Lisa smiled despite the tension. "Just remember, everyone, we're here to build bridges, not burn them." The airlock opened, and humanity stepped onto an alien world, carrying the weight of their violent history and the hope for a peaceful future. The Zarathian guards watching them seemed uncertain whether to treat them as honored guests or dangerous threats. Perhaps, Lisa thought, they were both. The council chamber was carved from a single, massive crystal formation that caught and reflected light in countless directions. 12 elderly Zarathians sat in a precise semicircle, their robes marking them as the highest authorities in the Empire. At the center sat High Chancellor Mike Reth, who had led the Empire for over 3 centuries. Ambassador Lisa Grant stood before them, flanked by Captain Daniel Price, Dr. Patricia Moore, and Lieutenant Amy Foster. The humans had dressed in formal diplomatic attire, but they felt underdressed compared to the elaborate ceremonial robes surrounding them. "Ambassador Grant," Mixrith began, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. "Welcome to Zarathia Prime. We have reviewed the data you transmitted. We have many questions. We're happy to answer them, High Chancellor," Lisa said respectfully. "Your environmental data regarding Earth," Science Chancellor Thyvan said. "We have verified it against independent stellar observations. It is accurate. How does your species function in such extreme conditions?" Right. One. We evolved there, Dr. Moore explained. "Over millions of years, our ancestors adapted to Earth's environment. Higher gravity made us stronger. Variable climate made us adaptable. Dangerous predators made us clever. We didn't choose those conditions. We just survived them long enough to master them. Your gravity is 1.3 times our standard," Thyvan continued. "You must find our world quite comfortable." "It's very pleasant," Lisa admitted. lighter gravity, stable climate, calm weather. It's actually quite relaxing compared to home. Several council members exchanged glances at that casual assessment of their homeworld. Your historical records, Military Chancellor Brecknoth said, his voice tense. The conflicts you documented. Are they complete? They're a representative sample, Dr. Moore said. Complete records would fill libraries. We chose examples that illustrated our military development and our capacity for both warfare and eventual peace. World War II, Brecknoth said. 6 years, over 70 million dead, entire cities destroyed. This truly happened? Yes. Dr. Moore confirmed. It was the deadliest conflict in our history, though not the only devastating one. We fought with artillery, aircraft, tanks, and eventually, atomic weapons. The death toll included both military forces and civilians. You targeted civilians deliberately? Both sides did, Dr. Moore said quietly. Strategic bombing of cities, siege warfare, genocide. It was total war, where the entire population and economy became targets. We're not proud of it, but we don't hide from it either. And after this war, you developed more destructive weapons? Mixreth asked. During and after, yes, Lisa said. We saw what atomic weapons could do, and were horrified. So we created international bodies to try to prevent future conflicts of that scale. We established rules for warfare, treaties limiting certain weapons, and systems to promote cooperation. Yet you still possess these atomic weapons, Energy Chancellor Velkus noted. We do, Lisa acknowledged. Thousands of them, spread across multiple nations. We call it deterrence. If everyone has weapons that can destroy civilization, then using them guarantees your own destruction. It's kept major powers from direct warfare for over 300 years. You live under permanent threat of annihilation? We live under permanent responsibility not to annihilate ourselves, Daniel corrected. It's not ideal, but it works. We've had smaller conflicts, but no world wars since we developed these weapons. Mixreth leaned forward slightly. Why did you laugh at Commander Vexthor's ultimatum? Lisa glanced at Daniel, who nodded for her to continue. High Chancellor, with respect, your threats didn't match our experience, Lisa said carefully. When Commander Vexthor described soldiers who could fight for 3 days without rest, we thought of our own military forces who routinely operate for weeks in hostile conditions. When he mentioned your bloodiest war with 40 million casualties, we thought of our conflicts with similar or higher death tolls from more primitive weapons. When he described your 5,000-year expansion across 800 star systems, Dr. Moore added, we compared it to human colonization efforts that covered similar distances in less time using wooden boats and wind power. You're saying our achievements are insignificant? Another council member asked sharply. No, Lisa said firmly. Your achievements are impressive. You've built a stable empire spanning hundreds of worlds. You've maintained order and peace across vast distances, but you've done it by overwhelming primitive species. You've never struggled. You've never fought someone who could actually defeat you. And you have? Constantly, Daniel said. We fight ourselves. We've spent most of our history in some form of conflict with other humans. We know what it's like to face enemies with equal technology, equal intelligence, and equal determination. We've learned hard lessons about warfare because we had no choice. This makes you superior? The council member pressed. No, Lisa said. It makes us experienced in ways you're not. But it also means we've seen enough war to not want more of it. We're not here to threaten you. We're here because we'd rather build something together than destroy each other. Mixreth studied the humans for a long moment. Show us more of your world, not just war. Show us what else you have achieved. Dr. Moore activated a holographic presentation. Images of Earth appeared, showing its diversity. Vast oceans, towering mountains, dense forests, frozen wastelands, scorching deserts, then cities, built to withstand earthquakes and hurricanes. Infrastructure designed with disaster recovery as a standard feature. Earth is beautiful but hostile, Dr. Moore explained. We built our civilizations knowing they would face regular natural disasters. Earthquakes, floods, storms, volcanic eruptions. We plan for catastrophe because catastrophe is routine. The presentation shifted to human achievements. The International Space Station, built by former enemies working together in orbit. The Large Hadron Collider, a scientific instrument requiring global cooperation. Medical advances that eradicated diseases. Agricultural innovations that fed billions. You cooperate on this scale? Ivan asked, surprised. After fighting such terrible wars? Because we fought such terrible wars, Lisa said. We learned that cooperation benefits everyone, while warfare destroys everyone. We still compete, still disagree. But we've built systems to resolve conflicts without total destruction. The presentation showed human culture. Music from dozens of traditions. Art spanning thousands of years. Literature exploring every aspect of human experience. Sports where humans competed peacefully, pushing physical boundaries. The Zarathian Council watched footage of Olympic athletes. Humans running, swimming, lifting, jumping, pushing their bodies to extreme limits in controlled competition. They would injure themselves in our gravity, Ivan observed. Those stress levels would damage Zarathian physiology. They're adapted to higher gravity and more energetic atmosphere. Dr. Helen Cross said, speaking for the first time. Human bodies are built for extreme physical stress. We heal quickly, tolerate pain well, and can perform remarkable feats under pressure. It's how we survived Earth. Your medical technology, Medical Chancellor Rixel said. It appears more advanced than ours in several areas. Possibly, Helen acknowledged. We've had to develop sophisticated medicine because Earth is hostile, and humans are fragile in many ways. We needed advanced healing techniques just to survive childhood diseases, injuries from our environment, and the various ways we hurt ourselves and each other. You heal from injuries that would be fatal to us, Rixel noted, reviewing medical data. Your bones can break and repair stronger than before. Your immune systems fight off pathogens that would kill most species. You can continue functioning with damage that would incapacitate Zarathians. Evolution on a death world, Helen said simply. We're tough because we had to be. Mixreth stood, silencing the other council members. We need to speak privately. Ambassador Grant, please wait in the adjacent chamber while we deliberate. The humans were escorted to a comfortable waiting room. Guards stood outside, polite but clearly present to prevent wandering. How do you think it's going? Amy whispered. Hard to tell, Lisa said. They're listening, at least. That's better than I expected. They're scared, Daniel observed. Look at how they position themselves. How they watch us. They're trying to figure out if we're a threat. Obuade. 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 Are we? Amy asked. Not intentionally, Lisa said. But from their perspective, we might as well be. We're everything they've never encountered. Dangerous but peaceful. Capable of terrible violence but choosing restraint. They don't have a framework for understanding us. An hour later, they were called back to the council chamber. The Zarathian leaders looked like they had been arguing, but they presented a unified front now. We have made a decision, Mixreth announced. The Empire cannot subjugate humanity. You are correct that our threats were inadequate. You come from circumstances we have never faced, and possess capabilities we do not fully understand. Lisa waited, knowing more was coming. However, Mixreth continued, we cannot simply withdraw our ultimatum without consequences. The Empire maintains order across 800 worlds. If we appear weak, if we back down without reason, that order will collapse. What do you propose? Lisa asked. Alliance, Mixreth said. Not as empire and subject, but as equals. We offer access to our star charts, our trade networks, our technology. In exchange, we ask for cultural and scientific exchange. We need what you have, humanity. We need the experience of struggle, The innovation born from necessity. The resilience that comes from surviving a world like Earth. 2. You're offering partnership? Daniel asked, surprised. We are offering survival, Mixrith said bluntly. We expanded across the galaxy, believing we were superior. You have shown us we were simply fortunate. We encountered only species we could easily dominate. But the galaxy is vast. Eventually, we would have met someone like you. Or worse. Better to learn from you now than to face an unknown threat, unprepared. What about the other species in your empire? Lisa asked. The ones you've already subjugated? They will be offered similar opportunities, Mixrith said. The empire must evolve, or eventually it will fall. You have given us a glimpse of what true strength looks like. We would be fools to ignore that lesson. Lisa looked at her team, seeing agreement in their eyes. We accept your offer of alliance, High Chancellor. We came seeking peaceful relations. Partnership serves everyone better than conflict. Then it is agreed, Mixrith said. We will draft formal treaties. You will have access to imperial space. We will establish embassies and begin cultural exchange. There's one thing you should know, Daniel said. Other species have been watching our interactions. They've seen the Empire back down for the first time. Some of them want to talk to us. Let them, Mixrith said. Let them see that the Empire can adapt, can change, can grow. Perhaps this is the beginning of something better for all of us. As the humans left the council chamber, Lisa felt cautiously optimistic. They had navigated first contact, avoided war, and established humanity as a power in galactic politics. We made them question everything they believed about themselves, Patricia said quietly. That's either the best thing we could have done, or the most dangerous. Time will tell, Lisa said. But at least we're moving forward together rather than destroying each other. Outside the council building, Zerathia Prime's gentle sun was setting, casting long shadows across the peaceful city. It was a world that had never known war, never faced real threat, never struggled for survival, but things were changing. The galaxy had met humanity, and nothing would be simple again. 3 weeks after the alliance was announced, humanity's first embassy station hung in orbit above Earth's moon. The structure was jointly built, combining human engineering with Zerathian materials. Inside, Ambassador Lisa Grant reviewed reports from across the galaxy, and the news was both encouraging and complicated. 6 different delegations requesting meetings, Captain Daniel Price said, reading from his datapad. All species currently under Zerathian protection. They want to know how we did it, how we made the Empire back down, Lisa said. Word spreads fast. The Keltharan Commonwealth is particularly insistent, Kevin Morris added. They were a spacefaring civilization before the Zerathians arrived. They want to discuss independence. Lisa considered this carefully. Set up the meetings. But make it clear we're not here to break up the Empire. We're here to build relationships. The first delegation arrived 2 days later. 6 species sent representatives to the neutral coordinates humanity had provided. The meeting room on the embassy station felt crowded as aliens of various shapes and sizes gathered around a circular table. Ambassador Zindar of the Keltharan Commonwealth spoke first. He was a tall, slender being with 4 arms and large eyes that showed intelligence and caution. Thank you for meeting with us, Ambassador Grant, Zindar said. We have watched your interactions with the Zerathians with great interest. We're happy to speak with you, Lisa said. What can we do for you? Tell us how you resisted, a Prithian representative requested. The Prithians were shorter, heavily built, with thick, armor-like skin. The Zerathians came to our worlds with overwhelming force. We saw no option but surrender. You somehow found a third path. We didn't resist their military might, Daniel explained. We just weren't impressed by it. Our reaction wasn't strategy. It was honest surprise that they thought those threats would work, but they have weapons that can destroy planets. A Novar delegate protested. The Novars were aquatic beings, currently in specialized environment suits. They have fleets numbering in the thousands. How could you not be intimidated? Dr. Helen Cross pulled up comparative data. Because we have similar capabilities and chose not to use them. We've possessed world-ending weapons for over 3 centuries. The Zarathians threatened us with things we already had and were afraid of using on ourselves. The alien delegates looked at each other, confusion evident across different physiologies. You possess weapons that can destroy your homeworld? Zindar asked carefully. Multiple times over, Helen confirmed. Atomic, biological, chemical. We developed them during our various wars and then created systems to prevent their use because we understood the consequences. You fought wars severe enough to develop such weapons? The Prithian asked. Many wars, Dr. Patricia Moore said. Continuous conflict throughout most of our recorded history. We competed for resources, territory, ideology, and sometimes, just because we disagreed about who should lead. We're a contentious species. But you're also here as a unified government, the Novar delegate noted. How did you achieve unity after such conflict? Savant. We didn't, really, Lisa admitted. Earth still has multiple nations, different governments, competing interests. But we learned to cooperate on important matters while maintaining our differences. We built international systems to resolve disputes without total warfare. Zindar leaned forward, all 4 hands clasped together. The Keltherin were spacefaring when the Zarathians arrived 800 years ago. We had colonies, trade networks, cultural achievements. We surrendered because resistance seemed futile. Now I wonder what we could have been if we had tried. Maybe you would have survived, Daniel said honestly. Maybe you would have been destroyed. The cost of resistance is sometimes catastrophic. We don't recommend our path. We barely survived it ourselves. But you did survive, Zindar said. And now you stand as equals with the Empire. We got lucky, Lisa said. The Zarathians had never encountered serious resistance before. They didn't know how to handle someone who wasn't afraid of them. If they had been more experienced with real warfare, our laughter might have started a conflict we couldn't win. Do you think the Empire would grant us independence now? A representative from the Thyler Collective asked. The Thylers were insectoid, communicating through translated clicks and chirps. I don't know, Lisa said. But I know the Empire is changing. High Chancellor Meixreth admitted they need to evolve. They're open to negotiation in ways they weren't before. Because you made them question themselves, Zindar said. You showed them they weren't as superior as they believed. Meanwhile, on the Zarathian flagship, Supreme Commander Vex Thor was conducting very different meetings. Zarathian officers who had completed cultural exchange visits to Earth gathered to share their experiences. The gravity is oppressive, one officer reported. I could barely function after 2 hours. The humans move normally, like it's nothing to them. Their weather is terrifying, another added. We experienced something they call a thunderstorm. Lightning, powerful winds, heavy rain. They continued outdoor activities as if it were mildly inconvenient. Their cities are built to survive disasters, a third officer said. Earthquakes that would destroy our structures. They just repair and rebuild. They plan for catastrophe as a routine occurrence. Vex Thor listened to these reports with a growing sense of understanding. The humans weren't exaggerating. Earth truly was a harsh world, and humanity had adapted to it in ways the Zarathians could barely comprehend. Science Officer Kilran presented findings on human physiology. Their bone density is significantly higher due to the gravity. Their cardiovascular systems are more efficient. Their immune responses are aggressive enough to fight off pathogens that would kill us. They're simply built tougher because they evolved in tougher conditions. And their technology? Vex Thor asked. In many areas, superior to ours, Kilran admitted. Their medical science is more advanced. Their materials engineering is more sophisticated. Their computer systems are more efficient. They didn't develop these for conquest. They developed them for survival and competition among themselves. Competition, Vex Thor mused. They compete constantly, even within their own species. It drives innovation, Kilran explained. Different nations, different companies, Different individuals all trying to outdo each other. They share knowledge but also jealously guard advantages. It creates rapid development in ways our unified approach does not. Vex Thor remembered his conversation with Captain Price weeks earlier. The human had said something that stuck with him. The scariest thing about humanity isn't our weapons or our endurance. It's that we know exactly how destructive we can be, and most of the time, we choose not to be. That choice, Vex Thor now understood, was the real power. The Zarathians had expanded by overwhelming primitives. The humans had restrained themselves from destroying each other, despite having the capacity, which required more strength. Back on the embassy station, the meeting with the subject species continued. Zindar had a private conversation with Lisa after the larger group dispersed. "I must be honest with you, Ambassador," Zindar said quietly. "I don't know if we want full independence. 800 years under Zarathian rule has made us comfortable with structure, with order, with someone else making difficult decisions." "That's understandable," Lisa said. "Freedom is responsibility. It means making your own mistakes and living with the consequences. But seeing you stand equal with the Empire makes us wonder what we could achieve," Zindar continued. "Not full independence, perhaps, but more autonomy. The right to govern ourselves, control our military, manage our internal affairs. Have you discussed this with the Zarathians?" "Not yet. We wanted to speak with you first, to understand our options," Lisa considered carefully. "The Empire is changing. High Chancellor Mixrith knows they need to evolve. But you need to understand something important. We're not here to break up the Empire or encourage rebellion. We're here to build relationships based on mutual respect." "What would you suggest?" "Honest negotiation," Lisa said. "Present your case to the Council. Explain what you want and why. The Zarathians are learning that partnership is stronger than subjugation. They might surprise you." Over the following months, negotiations took place across the Empire. The Keltharan Commonwealth requested semi-autonomous status. 2 other species asked for increased representation in imperial decisions. 3 chose to maintain their current relationship, calculating that stability outweighed uncertain independence. The negotiations were difficult. The Empire had never made concessions before. But something fundamental had changed. The Zarathians could no longer simply deny requests and expect compliance. They had to justify their positions, negotiate terms, accept compromise. The Keltharan negotiations took the longest. Ambassador Zindar met with the Imperial Council repeatedly, arguing for his people's right to self-governance. The council debated, consulted with military advisors, reviewed historical precedents. Finally, after 2 months of discussion, a compromise emerged. The Keltharan Commonwealth would become a semi-autonomous member of the Empire. They would maintain their own government, control their military, and manage internal affairs. In exchange, they would contribute to imperial defense, participate in the broader economy, and honor mutual defense treaties. It wasn't full independence, but it was more freedom than they had known in 8 centuries. When the agreement was announced, 6 other species immediately requested similar arrangements. The Empire was transforming, slowly and painfully, from a structure of dominance to a federation of cooperation. Lisa and Daniel watched Earth rise above the lunar horizon from the embassy station's observation deck. 3 months had passed since that first meeting where humanity's laughter had changed everything. "We made them question 5,000 years of assumptions," Lisa said. "I'm still not sure if that was brilliant or reckless." "Probably both," Daniel replied. "But look at what's happening. Species that were subjects are becoming partners. The Empire is learning to negotiate instead of dictate. That's progress. The Zarathians are studying everything about us," Kevin Morris said, joining them. "They want to understand how we think, how we innovate, how we survived Earth and each other. They're particularly interested in our crisis management and our ability to function under extreme stress. They're learning from us," Amy Foster added. "And we're learning from them. Their star charts alone have opened up hundreds of potential colony worlds for us." "It's not all positive," Lisa cautioned. "Some Zarathian factions resent the changes. Some subject species are using our example to demand more than the Empire can give. We've destabilized a 5,000-year-old order. Maybe that order needed destabilizing, Daniel said. An empire built on overwhelming primitives was eventually going to encounter someone they couldn't dominate. Better it was us, looking for partnership, than someone looking for conquest. A message alert chimed. Lisa checked her datapad and smiled slightly. What is it? Daniel asked. Message from a species on the far edge of Zarathian space. They've heard about us. They want to know if the stories are true. Did we really make the Empire laugh at themselves? What are you going to tell them? The truth, Lisa said. That we didn't plan to change anything. We just reacted honestly to threats that seemed absurd by our standards. Everything that followed came from that one moment of genuine surprise. And laughter, Daniel added. Don't forget the laughter. How could I? Lisa smiled. We met the most powerful empire in the region and responded with uncontrollable laughter. It might be the most successful diplomatic disaster in history. On Zarathia Prime, High Chancellor Mixreth reviewed reports from across the empire. The changes were spreading, sometimes faster than he would prefer, but they were necessary. The humans had shown the Zarathians a mirror, and what they saw was uncomfortable. An empire that had never struggled, never fought equals, never faced real existential threat. They had expanded across the stars, believing they were exceptional when they were simply fortunate. But fortune changes. The galaxy was vast and full of unknowns. Better to learn from humanity now, to adapt and evolve, than to face a truly hostile force unprepared. Mixreth thought back to that first transmission, when the humans had laughed at Vexthor's ultimatum. At the time, it seemed like the worst insult imaginable. Now he understood it was the greatest gift they could have given. The Empire had been shown its own limitations. And that knowledge, painful as it was, might be what saved them in the long run. In the embassy station's common area, human and Zarathian staff worked side by side on joint projects. Cultural exchange programs brought visitors from dozens of worlds. Scientific collaboration was producing new technologies neither species could have developed alone. Dr. Patricia Moore was teaching a class on human history to fascinated Zarathian students. They listened with a mixture of horror and admiration as she described humanity's long, bloody path to civilization. But you survived, one student said. Despite all that conflict, all that destruction, you survived and reached the stars. We did, Patricia agreed. Not because we're special or superior, but because we're stubborn. We refuse to give up, even when giving up would be easier. That's not always a virtue. Sometimes it's just stubbornness. But it got us here. And now you're teaching us, the student said. Sharing everything you learned. Because the alternative is worse, Patricia said. We could have kept our knowledge secret, maintained an advantage, used our experience as a weapon. But what would that accomplish? We're stronger together than apart. That's a lesson we learned in blood, and we'd rather share it than watch others learn it the same way. Back in the observation deck, as Earth's Terminator divided day from night below them, Lisa received one more message. This one from Supreme Commander Vexthor. Ambassador Grant, I wanted to thank you personally. When your crew laughed at my ultimatum, I was furious. I thought it was the ultimate insult. Now I understand it was honesty. You weren't mocking us. You were simply reacting to threats that meant nothing to someone from your background. That honesty, as uncomfortable as it was, has changed the Empire for the better. We were arrogant in our ignorance. You showed us what we didn't know. For that, I am grateful. Lisa shared the message with Daniel. We came looking for peaceful first contact. We ended up teaching an empire humility. How did that happen? We laughed, Daniel said simply. We were honest. We showed them something they'd never seen before. And somehow, that was enough. The galaxy stretched out before them, vast and full of possibilities. Humanity had taken its first steps onto the galactic stage, and those steps had changed more than anyone expected. Somewhere in the depths of space, other civilizations watched and wondered. If humans could make the Zarathian Empire question itself, What else could they do? What else would they change? The answer, like so much else about humanity, would probably be surprising, occasionally frustrating, and somehow effective, despite seeming ridiculous at first, because that, it turned out, was the human way. Survive the impossible, laugh at the absurd, and build something better from the chaos. And the galaxy, ready or not, was learning to deal with it.